A2D Radio, guys, I am back on Eagles Talk. Feels good to be back, gentlemen. I've been away from you guys for like 2 months now, so I am excited to be back live, talk some Eagles ball, and right at the nick of time, we're talking about the Eagles draft tonight. But first and foremost, of course, we got to do some housekeeping. Bob Joe's Bread, our sponsor, they're located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads. Tomato pie, sandwiches, cutlets, and meatballs. Mention A2D rated for 10% off your in-store purchase. It's myself, Chucks, Brinks, PY. Gentlemen, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a couple months, and we had the Eagles draft. How
I couldn't be that lucky.
What'd you say?
I said I couldn't be that lucky.
Oh, no, you couldn't be that lucky. You know you missed me. You know you missed me.
I can't miss someone who's never left.
I missed you, Chucks.
Oh, thank you, Briggs. Thank you, Briggs.
Yes.
I did miss you guys. Yeah, I was like I said, because I started doing Film Don't Lie a couple weeks ago. I got 2 shows in, and I as I was saying, like, it was a much needed break. You know, I had time to like kind of reset myself. It was the first break I had on A2D Radio since I joined. So like my first like just time to just reset, and I definitely needed it. But I'm definitely excited to come back and talk football with you guys, talk Eagles football with you guys. It's gonna be a good time. Gonna be a good time, and excited to say hi to Les again in a few minutes. So we definitely get to that when he comes back on. But let's get right down to it, because I'm sure we have a lot to talk about today regarding the Eagles draft. So our poll question: the Eagles made the right decision by not drafting a tight end. Agree or disagree? Looking at the draft class, and we'll talk about our thoughts, because I wasn't able to go on live on ATD Radio for the reaction shows. I know you both, I don't know if you guys were on at the same time, but I know you both were on Friday during that. So I don't know your
We
takes.
cross streams on Friday.
What was that?
We cross streams on Friday. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, we I don't know how you felt about the whole draft class, which we will get into with Les, definitely. But I know that tight end was something that's been harped upon for the Eagles to take for maybe like 2 years now. And the fact that they didn't take one, I know some people have opinions on it. But let's go to Brinks first. So what do you think? Do you think you think it really hinders or downgrades their overall class, the fact that there's no tight end, or are you okay with it because you're happy with the rest of the class that we did get?
No, I mean, the class is good. I think the first 2 are really, really good. The rest of the guys gonna have to learn things about them as we go along here. I am very, very happy that Dallas Goedert is still here. So I don't care that they didn't draft the tight end. So I think they made the right decision by keeping Dallas Goedert and not drafting a tight end, or sticking with Grant Calcaterra as your starting tight end going into next season. Now, obviously, things can change. We'll see. But Dallas Goedert is a Philadelphia Eagle, and I am going to talk about him like he's going to be a Philadelphia Eagle until he is not a Philadelphia Eagle. And like I said, in the 2 months, probably every show that you were gone, Chucks, I would rather keep Dallas Goedert here, eat the money, pay him way too much, even though there's some issues with him, than just get a 5th round pick for him like you did with CJ Gardner-Johnson. You're a better football team with Dallas Goedert. So should they have drafted a tight end later on? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think the Eagles really liked the depth of this class, considering how much they traded. That's just me inferring that. So not drafting a tight end is fine. They brought in Harrison Bryant. They have Grant Calcaterra, and they still have Dallas Goedert. That's a solid route.
PY, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. Well, I'm not the biggest Dallas Goedert fan, and I can understand the reasoning why you wanted to move him. Like, the age, you didn't feel he was right price for him. You don't love the fact that he's hurt all the time. I didn't exactly want to get rid of him for like a 3rd-round pick. Like if we could have like moved up severely in the 2nd round and traded him to the Colts, I would have been fine with something like that. But that move didn't materialize. Any other team that needed a tight end kind of got one. I thought the Bills or the Browns could be a possibility. And obviously the Colts were my number one option. That didn't happen. So like Dallas Goedert is staying put. And while the Dallas Goedert, like, will he stay or will he go situation was happening, they quietly rebuilt the tight end room, and you got a good tight end in Harrison Bryant who's going to be able to help you for that time period to where he's going to miss time. So when he's down, you're going to have Calcaterra and you're going to have Harrison Bryant to lean on. Like, yeah, it was obviously the right decision. Like, obviously, there were good tight ends. The Loveland is really good. Tyler Warren is really good. Like there was a lot of good like tight ends in this draft class, but they just got picked way too early, and it wasn't something the Eagles were willing to invest in. They had other needs, and I just don't think the trade market for Dallas Goedert was there. You didn't force him out of town for a bad pick. You didn't Zach Ertz this situation, which is great. But yeah, like it was 100% a good decision by not drafting a tight end. If you had the option to go get one, maybe that's a different story. But where we stand right now, Dallas Goedert is your tight end 1 for the season, and that's a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, I think there's some points you guys harped on that were good points. I agree to the poll. A few things. So, you guys have mentioned Harrison Bryant. I think you're overlooking Kylan Granson, who was solid. Like, yeah, I mean, I think Kylan Granson has proven to be better than Harrison Bryant. So yeah, you are forgetting it, PY. If you really actually watch the Colts. So there's that aspect. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like either one are like special players, but they are depth. They are depth pieces. So it's not like the title room is completely, not non-existent. I think it's okay. The title room is fine, barring injury, as always. But the other thing that, and PY, you touched on it a little bit, but I'll touch on it further. So the tight ends went quick. That's the problem. So the Eagles picked at 64, right? So, you're not going to get Loveland or Tyler Warren. They got picked in the top 15. Loveland at 10 and Tyler Warren, if I'm correctly, I'll look it up right. I have it up here. Tyler Warren got 14. Yeah. So they were
the Colts.
Yeah, 14 to the Colts. So it's not, you weren't going to get them. They weren't going to drop. And trading up for a tight end, I don't in a class like this, I don't see that happening anyways. So that probably was just a fever dream, and we were hoping one of them would fall, but realistically the chances were slim as it is. So looking for or trying to anticipate either of those tight ends was slim at best. It was the next tier of guys that you were kind of looking at, and we talked about Mason Taylor. We talked about Terrence Ferguson was mentioned a lot. Some people like Elijah Arroyo, the athletic tight end. He's divisive. Because he's more like a wide receiver, power slot than he is like an inline tight end. So I don't think he would have really fit here. But that is a prospect that some people were looking at as well. I know some people were talking about Harold Fannin, who did get picked, who was available at 64, but despite the connection everyone had with him and the Eagles coaching staff, I was not a huge Fannin fan. I don't really like his type of athletic profile. It's awkward and weird. So I'm like, I'm good. I had a lower grade on Fannin than some other people did. So I was fine with passing on him. But those three guys in that next tier, so Mason Taylor, Terrence Ferguson, Elijah Arroyo, they were all taken in the second round. Pick 10, pick 14, pick 18. So there was that run on tight ends, and it's just like, what are you going to do? Now there's this notion or feeling that a lot of the NFL was reluctant to trade with Howie Roseman this time around. I don't know how legitimate that is. It could just be like GMs joking around and and playing fun and everything like that. So I don't know how legit that is, but if it is legit, that is a factor. The fact that just how we couldn't trade up, and so if you can't trade up, you gotta just let the board come to you. So the fact that there were no really tight ends available on day 2 for when they were looking to maybe draft one, you don't force it. There's nothing else you can do. That's how the board falls. But that is a really good reason why holding on to Dallas Goedert was the right move. And Brinks, I'm with you. I've been saying, like, while so many fans were like very eager to get rid of Dallas Goedert, I preferred not to. Like, I was like, just keep him for another year. Just, if you draft someone, he can mentor him, because tight end is actually a position that takes a while to transition. When you're going from college to the NFL, it does take a little bit. We've seen it. Like, it takes a while for them to acclimate to the pro level because of all the things they have to do. They have to block. Usually they have to block. They have to learn, the receiving a part of it. So it's a tougher transition than some other positions. So having him groom the prospect would be nice. No, we don't have a prospect, but it is what it is. And then just, I get that he's injured a lot, but when he's on the field, he is really, really good. And I know Les, who we're going to have join on in a second, I overheard him last week, I believe it was on last week's show, saying that if you believe that the Eagles win the Super Bowl without Dallas Goedert, then that's not really correct. Like, we win the Super Bowl partly because of Dallas Goedert. Absolutely. Like, that play he made against the Packers was clutch, and it was an amazing play. And then just what he contributes on different levels on the offense. So it's very important to have him. The injuries are always going to be a concern, but you can't force a draft pick. So I agree. It was the right decision not to draft one because no one fell to you. There was none there. So that is what it is. So let's get to the chat before we get to Les.
And then while you're getting to that, like when the Ravens started dangling Mark Andrews out there, that just kind of killed the Dallas Goedert vibe, because then there's 2 tight ends that are like kind of the same out there. So teams can just play the Ravens and the Eagles against each other, and then just drives the price down. So
there was a report too that Michael Mayer was a candidate for the trade target for the Eagles. So I don't know if that's legit, but if it is, it's still a possibility. You can trade for Michael Mayer. There are other tight ends that are on the trade market. So I mean, it's trading for one still is still a possibility. Offseason isn't over. So Daly welcomes me back. Thank you, Daly. It's good to be back after 2-month break. Much needed, like I said, but I'm very, very excited to be back and talk live. He agrees to the poll. I think when he's on the field, he's a stud. He does have injury concerns, but can't make a trade just for the sake of trading. Absolutely. Let's see. SJM, what's up, SJM? Says, what up? I agree to the poll. It was the right decision. Goddard's still here. It's much ado about nothing. Their tight ends are sufficient if Goddard remains here, which of now he is. Yes. Habib 215 says we're getting younger and stronger on the defense. We absolutely are. He asked, and we'll get to this soon, so we'll circle back to it. Habib asked what we think about Makuba. Definitely, we'll talk about that. He says Makuba can find the ball. Oh, absolutely. SGM says aside from Warren and Loveland, I wasn't too fond of either tight ends, and the Eagles weren't in a spot to draft them. Fortunately, Roseman was able to draft the best player available. Absolutely.
Well, what if the Colts didn't pick Warren though? There, 14, and he started to fall.
I think if he gets into like that late, that like mid to late 20s area, then possibly he would have been a trade up candidate. But we'll never know because we don't know how he was on the board, ranked on the board compared to Jihaad Campbell. We just don't know. So. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean that's a good question. I don't know.
Well, if the Colts didn't pick him there, I was about to take it to like go get him.
Yeah, go get him.
He's a stud.
I hear you.
I love that guy. I love everything.
Yes. Good to see you again. How are you?
Good to see you. Yes, you're still with us. Yes.
I am. I had a great break, got to reset and just like clear my mind and get back into football talk, get in the draft talk. And to talk Eagles with you guys, so I'm excited and good to see. I know we've kind of like talked a little bit here and there on Twitter as always, but it's good to have conversation with you here live on the show again. So I'm excited. Your thoughts on the we all kind of agreed to the poll because there was just no tight end there, but I don't know if you disagree, if you felt they should have been more aggressive. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it depends on what it means. I mean, if it really means that they're going to go ahead with Dallas Goedert, then great. I'm all for that. As I've said, I haven't seen that they really said that. And in fact, what Howie said after the draft was pretty much what he'd been saying all along. And I can't imagine now what the plan really is, unless they're going to trade for somebody. If they are going to somehow try to move Dallas Goedert, I don't know what you move him for at this point. I certainly wouldn't want to see them just release him. I think that would be really wasteful. I don't know what's going to happen. I guess my answer is they made the right decision, assuming that this means Dallas Goedert is the tight end. I was surprised. I was very, very surprised. I understand what you're saying about the draft, the board not really coming to them, but they could have gone to the board, if they really wanted to do this, if they really felt they had to get a tight end. They had picks. They could have traded. They had picks next year they could have traded. They could have moved up in the second round. I think there was still at least one guy of the tight ends that were considered pretty decent who was around in the third round. They didn't, they traded out of that third round. They seemed to want to get to the third day of the draft as quickly as they could. And, not only did they not draft a tight end, but I don't think they've signed one as an undrafted free agent, which is, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. I don't know if you're really going to do this. What they have, Grant Calcaterra and a couple guys they picked up that are just guys that you can find anywhere. I don't want to see that at all. So I guess my answer depends on what the plan is, I guess.
No, that's fair. That is. I had assumed, because I didn't listen to the whole press conference. They said that Dallas Goedert is on this team, so I had assumed that because
he said for now though.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I don't know what
something has to happen. I don't think they're gonna. It's like a $15.5 million total cash outlay for this season.
Yeah,
and apparently they're not willing to pay that. I don't know, unless they've changed their mind.
There has to be something severe happen for them to get rid of Dallas Goedert at this point. Because if they were so determined to get rid of him, they would have paid pennies on the dollar during the draft.
Yeah, they would have traded him during the draft. They would have gotten, a tight end during the draft. So I don't know what's going on. I'm kind of out of it in that kind of, in terms of inside information there. But it's puzzling to me. The write-ups I've seen from the beat writers assume that they're still going ahead with this plan. I just don't see how. I don't get it.
Yeah. All right.
Wait, how many legitimately better tight ends in the NFL are there than Dallas Goedert?
I
understand there's
three or four.
Yeah, four.
You do have to factor in. There's two things you have to factor in from Howie's standpoint. I think I wrote about this a few weeks ago, and they're interrelated. One is he misses at least a quarter of every season for years and years and years, which is a lot of games when you start adding it up.
Yeah.
And the other is they signed him to this big deal in 2021, November of 2021, with the assumption it slotted him right between Kittle and Kelsey. He was the number 2 tight end in terms of salary between Kittle and Kelsey. And they were assuming going forward that would be the level that they would get. And a lot has happened. They have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and I don't know that any tight end here is going to get the kind of numbers, that Kittle or Kelsey gets. But nonetheless, he's hurt at least a quarter of the season every year, and his numbers from 2021 are his best numbers of his career. Yeah. And counterbalancing in that is the fact that he's the 2 big playoff runs they've been on. He's been their leading receiver, and he was this year. And like I said, and you reiterated, they wouldn't have won a Super Bowl without him this year. I don't think teams were really pretty pretty good at limiting Smith and Brown, and having Goddard really was a big part of their passing offense, such as it was going into the Super Bowl and then in the Super Bowl. So it's a fraught situation. And one thing real quick, that was a surprise to me when I started covering football. I'd never covered a sport where there was non-guaranteed contracts. Mm-hmm. And I was amazed. I remember a few years in, I was talking to Hollis Thomas one day. He'd been hurt the previous year, and basically they'd taken back like half of his money. If he could be cut and go find a deal somewhere else, or he could take whatever they were willing to give him for the next couple years. And teams really, if you don't give them what they were expecting when they sign you to the deal, they don't like that. They're not like, poor so-and-so, he got hurt, we're really so sad. They're like, damn it, I look bad. This is like drafting a guy that can't play. I'm paying this man to be the best tight end in the league, and he's not out there, fourth of the time. I think that all plays into it. I really do.
It probably does. It's a tough thing to really find a good value for, because like it's his receiving production is down, but I've said this before, that loss to Washington, after Jalen Hurts went down, I think a very underrated factor, and I'd say the biggest factor outside of Jalen's injury as to why we lost, is because with Goddard not there, our run blocking from the tight ends was horrendous. Like Washington
really bad.
Washington exposed that area, and without Goddard and you got to like look at it, the fact that Goddard is one of the top tight ends because of his dual,
overall,
do both, right? You have so many receiving tight ends that look highly, but how many of them are as good as Goddard when it comes to run blocking? Not a lot. Maybe not any of them. So that is like, while the numbers went down, especially since 2021, like you said, Les, I think it is such a big factor that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, because when you go to a run first offense, and we did this year, that blocking element, and to be able to be a receiving element as well on top of that, really poses issues for the defense. So it's really not that's why when I was looking at the tight end class, I had no interest in Elijah Arroyo, because he's not a blocker.
Yeah.
No, he's basically a big slot receiver.
He's a big slot receiver. So like he's for the Eagles, just for the Eagles board, he's far down my board, because I'm like, it doesn't fit what they need. It really doesn't. So
Mason Taylor was the guy, I think, if you're going to get one.
He was the guy I was looking at in the second round. If as a target, yes. He was the guy, because I 100% agree. My good friend from Twitter does chime in. He says, very bad decision. Next year's signing class is very weak, so Goddard may have to stay through 2027.
That doesn't bother me.
I don't care. He's good.
It doesn't bother me either.
He's not going to be 100 years old in 2027.
Greg Miller says there are 3 teams in my opinion that have depth at tight end. Raiders have Bowers and Mayer. The Bears have Loveland and Kmet. And the Ravens have Andrews and Likely. Make a call for Mayer, Kmet, or Likely. The issue with Likely, and I know someone else, I think it's someone else mentioned Likely as well. Oh, Greg. It was Greg as well. The issue with Likely is the same thing. He's not a blocker. Like he can't block. He's essentially, he works with the edges because he plays F a lot. The F position, which is essentially the big slot. So that's a problem. Like, I love Likely as a player. He is one of my favorite like underrated tight ends, but it wouldn't fit here because he can't block. So that's the issue. David also mentioned dark horse candidate for a trade is Okonkwo, but overall it's showing poor planning with their public comments regarding Dallas. It's a little bit of the tough one. Eagles Eric, another friend of mine on Twitter, he says, "Hey fellas, I want to hear Chuck's opinion on A.J. Dillon versus Shipley for backup. Toss up." I like Shipley a little bit more, just because I thought he did impress and he's more versatile. I've never been an A.J. Dillon fan. I think he's a little bit overrated and one-dimensional, and just he's not like
Mm.
he doesn't. I've never been a fan. I know there are my other friend on Twitter, Johnny Page, who does tremendous work.
From London, yes.
Yeah. He likes AJ Dillon more than I do. He did the breakdown, and we kind of discussed it. I was a guest on their pod a few weeks ago. We kind of touched on it a little bit. He likes AJ Dillon more than I do, but at the same time, he agrees that like the room as a whole is not ideal. Like you want kind of better options there than Shipley and Dillon. But I'm a little bit high. I'm a little bit more positive and optimistic for Shipley than he is. I think Shipley can impress a little bit. When they took Shipley, I was kind of disappointed because there were running backs that I wanted more than Shipley. So I'm like, he's okay. But he did fine when he had to play. So I'm all for giving him a shot. But overall, it is not an ideal situation for that running back room. You kind of hope that Saquon can once again stay healthy. So
I was hoping they get your guy from Rutgers, your running back from Rutgers this year.
Yes, I was under the table for
he went seventh round to somebody. Who got him in the seventh round?
The Bears. Yeah. Good landing spot for him. Yeah, because he'll compete.
I was disappointed. I was disappointed they didn't pick at 96.
Pick what? Running back?
Anything.
Yeah, you mean in the third round. You mean they traded out of the third round. Yeah. Boy, I was hugely disappointed. That's a really good point. They ended up with 8 of their 10 picks.
We've been talking about him for 2 months. Jack Sawyer. I thought it was like
I would have liked to have seen that.
Because I think Scatabo was there. I think Caleb Johnson from Iowa was there. My guy Xavier Watts was there. I know they picked the safety in the second round, but I mean Xavier Watts is a two-time first-team All-American at pick 96. That's tough to ignore.
I wanted someone, myself, and a lot of people that that cover the draft for the Eagles on Twitter also wanted. We were eyeing Charles Grant out of William & Mary, and we thought he was like the perfect example of like a Stoutland project, right?
Yeah.
Very raw, but he showed excellent movement skills and athletic ability, and just kind of like a unicorn, right? So not a unicorn, I don't want to say that, but just a very athletic guy. Fits exactly what the Eagles look for. He was available in 96, but they decided to trade back, and then after they traded back, he got picked like a pick or two later. So he wasn't available at 104. And I know there were some people that were like, they probably got too cute and missed out on Charles Grant, but I don't think that's how he's MO. I think that if they really wanted Charles Grant, they would have just taken him there.
Right. I think they liked him. I don't think they loved him. They're like, all right, cool. If he's not here at 90, so we're going to move out of 96, whatever. What would they move down to, like 103 or 102, right?
104.
Sure. They moved down to 104, right? And their whole thought process was, all right, cool. If he's there at 104, perfect. Otherwise, it's fine. Like, they didn't love him. I don't think they loved anyone in this draft.
Yeah.
I don't think they were. And
this draft as a whole wasn't that great.
No, it was not. After 15, it was like, all right, cool. We'll see what happens. Like, that's why he picked like 8 selections on day 3, because they just bet on traits. Like, they made a few good undrafted free agent guys, and they built through like day 3. But like, I don't really think there was any guys where they're like, oh, I gotta have him. I gotta trade up for him. You know what I mean? There was another guy where you thought they were gonna take him, but he got picked like 2 picks later, and then they traded out.
Yeah. Well, the thing about day 3 is, and this is kind of something I've been writing about a lot lately. Mm-hmm. People say, oh, Howie season, Howie kills the draft, Howie's on a great roll, and he is. But if you look at these previous 4 drafts that have gone so well, he had much better draft capital at the top. This is the first time they've only had they only had made 2 picks in the top 100 for the first time since 2020, and that was not a good draft. Jalen Hurts was the only guy they really got that year.
Yeah.
That was the Rager draft. I hated trading out of the 3rd round. When you end up with 8 of your 10 picks on the 3rd day, you're just kind of, throwing Hail Marys. I mean,
maybe one starts for you at some point.
Right, exactly. And there might be a few others who are helpful players, really good backups who can step in here and there. Most of them are going to be out of the league, after being on the practice squad for a while.
Yeah.
And that's it. I understand they don't have a lot of spots open. They didn't need to kill the draft this year. All that is very true. But we might look 3 years from now back at this and say, yeah, they didn't get much out of that 2025 draft, and it's kind of hurting them now,
Possibly. It's a very someone had said this, and I think I can understand it. It's a very risky draft where they took a lot of swings, so it's one of those draft classes where it could be misses on a lot of guys, or it could be a lot of hits on a lot of guys. So we'll have to see. But I personally think as a draft class, it was a whole. But as we're halfway through the show, definitely if you're not yet, follow, like, and subscribe to us on YouTube and all of our socials. Let's get to the actual draft class. Now, I think that
just one thing about Charles Grant. If I don't like guys from Toledo being drafted, how do you think I feel about guys from William and Mary?
the third round.
Who cares? He said the same thing about Jalen Smythe.
Let's frame it this way. So I don't think there's a need to go pick by pick and analyze it, because I'm sure there's a lot of we've covered that. You guys on Friday probably covered days picks 1 to 3, and a lot of Eagles content have already talked about that. So let's switch up a little bit. All right, Les, I'll start with you. Give me one pick that you like the most out of the whole draft class that you can stand by.
Well, I'm going to be real obvious. Jihaad Campbell is the guy I like the most, just because they got what everybody seems to consider a top 15 player at 31. And that's a hell of a thing to do. I don't know how Fangio plans to use him, but I think he'll figure it out. There's a lot of debate about, off-ball linebacker, edge rusher, whatever. I don't care, but I think they got a guy who can start for them probably right away, really. I mean, or close to it. Guy who can get a lot of snaps.
If healthy.
But this third day guys, I mean, there are people that are all excited. I had a guy on Twitter today tell me that Stoutland was going to make Cameron Williams into Lane Johnson's successor. Well, Cameron Williams was drafted in the 6th round, and maybe he will. I guess that's the guy that came out early, and people think if he stayed another year, he might have been a much higher pick.
He was supposed to be a day one pick.
But
next year,
Lane Johnson was the 4th player overall taken in the draft. I mean,
it's a little bit lofty.
Stoutland working his magic is one thing, but having a guy who's really got all pro ability is another. I mean,
it's that draft hope.
It depends too much on that magic.
Everyone has hope on draft day for
everyone thinks like Jordan Mailata is like there's going to be one of him every year.
That's only happened once, and it was a freak thing because he was a wonderful athlete who just hadn't played football. These guys that you're getting on the 3rd day now are not Jordan Mailata. They're guys that have some traits, but haven't really done it, or have some huge problems.
I hear you. In terms of, this is one of the other poll questions I had suggested, or nominees for poll question was, you talked about Jihaad Campbell and whether there's argument online which position he will actually play, and it kind of I kind of get annoyed because you have to really you have to look at Fangio and what his MO is and what they like to do. Jihaad Campbell is not going to be just stuck at one position.
Right.
I'm not going to name names, but it kind of gets annoying because it gets annoying the stuff, the takes he puts out. But there's one Eagles reporter that just
name him.
No, I'm not going to name him because I'm not. But he's insistent that he's just going to be a pass rusher primarily, and that annoys me because, or an edge rusher. Let me clarify this. He's insisting that he's just going to be an edge rusher.
Yeah.
Let's guys. Let's when you break down Jihaad Campbell's film, yes, he was recruited out of high school as an edge rusher, and only moved to linebacker because they had Will Campbell
Right.
and I forget the other guy at Alabama already. So he only moved out there out of necessity, right? So I get it that he has that history, and yes, he can rush off the edge, but if you compare his film to his film as a linebacker, he is a better linebacker.
Yeah.
All right, so he has potential off the edge, but it's not.
And if he was really an edge rusher, if that was, 100% that this guy who currently weighs 235 pounds was going to be a great edge rusher, somebody would have taken him before 31.
Yes, yeah. And that's the thing. Like he has upside there, but that's not where he's best at.
Right.
His best at is what he's. The reason why he's awesome at linebacker and middle linebacker for Reds is one, because when he does pressure up the middle, he is like a bullet train. Like he is insanely fast. And I think it was Doug Farrar. He made the comparison that like he teleports from the second level to the quarterback. He's that fast. But then the other thing is, if you just stick him at edge rusher, you're not taking advantage of his coverage ability.
Yeah.
He's a great coverage linebacker. He's insane.
And they can use that. They can really use that.
Yes. So to be able to pigeonhole him or put him in a box and say, no, the Eagles like edge rusher, so he's only going to be an edge rusher. That annoys me. Like it's not.
Well, I think it came a lot, Chucks. I don't want to guess who you're naming here, but there were some reporters who were just going to die on the hill of the Eagles are definitely going to draft an edge rusher first. And anybody who thinks anything else is just an idiot. They're going to draft an edge rusher first. I know this, blah, blah, blah. And so they had to make their prophecy come true.
Yeah, that's what it is. It is annoying. It's not objective analysis based on what the Eagles actually like to do. And that just annoys me because like if you're putting out takes out there that they're misleading and it's not to the truth. So that
some of these guys are just living in 5 years. Like the NFL has changed. Howie's changed. Like
yes,
they just paid a linebacker. They just picked a linebacker in the first round.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
They didn't do the edge rusher thing last year. They beefed up the secondary with Mitchell and DeJean. Yeah, and then they went back to the secondary again in the second round with Makuba. So this is.
I talked to some of those beat writers when I was in New Orleans. This is before they had signed Bond to the big deal, and there was still this. I don't know if they're going to sign Bond. They don't pay linebackers. I was like, you have to be kidding me. You saw what this guy did. Jesus, how in the world are you not going to pay him? What are you going to do? Nakobe Dean was already hurt then. You're not going to have him for half the year next year, probably. How do you see this working out if you don't pay Zach Bond? Of course you're going to pay Zach Bond. And it's Fangio's defense now. We're not operating under the Andy Reid concept of the position, or the Chip Kelly or Doug Peterson concept of the position. This is Vic Fangio's defense. And for some reason, I don't think that gets through to everybody covering the team. I don't know why.
Yep, 100%.
They also Josh Sweat is an edge rusher. They didn't sign him. Milton Williams, defensive lineman, didn't sign him. And I mean, they took the Nebraska kid in whatever they picked on day 3. They picked him 4th round. Like that's the only reinforcements that are coming on the defensive line. Obviously, they can sign people and trade for guys still before the season starts, but kind of what's here is what's here. And the Nebraska kid, Robinson, something I think his name is.
Ty Robinson.
Yeah,
Ty Robinson. He's going to be in the rotation with Ojamu and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Jalix Hunt and Bryce Huff. One of them or both is going to have to step up along with Nolan Smith. So this defense is loaded. Like I love this defense with.
Yeah, they're banking a lot.
Yeah.
You do the base 3-4 with Bond and Campbell in the middle. I mean, that's pretty.
That's really
substantial if Campbell is what we think he is.
Yeah. Eagles Eric, my friend, he says, I wonder what was wrong with Swinson. Yeah, I'm surprised he lasted to the 5th round. I am very surprised.
Yeah.
I had a 3rd round grade on him. Eric, I think you did too. So I'm surprised. He was someone I was looking at for like that 3rd round pick for the Eagles. So I don't know. I liked him. I don't know. Les, give me one pick that's from the Eagles you're scratching your head over.
Well, the lack of a tight end is the biggest thing I'm scratching my head over. They did the Kyle McCord thing.
Oh,
I understand he has talent. You have a good backup and you have a good 3 right now.
Do you?
I don't know. I mean,
he's cheap.
To me, that was the pick that showed that they're just sort of beefing up the practice squad here. I mean, Kyle McCord isn't going to get close to playing quarterback for this team anytime soon. I was surprised they wanted to do that. I really was. He's a local guy. It's great that he's an Eagle, and I saw the picture of him wearing his McNabb jersey when he was a little kid and all that. That's great. Good for him. But they didn't need to do that. There are a lot of things they could have gotten, rather than doing that. I guess that's mine. Yeah.
I don't think I understand like people were talking about McCord. Like I think he's probably going to be your QB of the future. I think McKee is gone next year. I think he's traded one way or another.
Wait,
just
backup
because
QB of the future?
Yes.
Because you said QB of the future, and I
said like, backup QB. I said backup QB.
Okay.
You didn't, but okay.
Okay, whatever.
So just correct yourself.
It's backup QB. Yes, backup QB. I'm sorry.
QB. Okay, all right.
Yes, Hurts is your.
I believe that's what
your lifelong starter.
I know. I believe that's what you meant. I just wanted to verify.
But yeah, like. Also, they're 100% going to pick Shador. I don't care what anyone says. Like you let the Browns trade up in front of you because you're good buddies with Andrew Barry. I'm going to help my protege out. And then you just happen to take quarterback. If we took another position, we could be like, all right, cool. There's no way we were going to pick Sanders. We were 100% going to pick Shador. Like, you're probably drafting McCord with the hope that, like, you can develop him to be the next guy. Like, Tanner McKee is good, but, like, next year's his last year. And I'm pretty sure he's on it. He's like here for just one more year. Like he's out.
Okay. Yep.
Shador Sanders, man. What a 30 for 30 that's gonna be.
That's gonna be so much fun.
It's not whatever. That's a huge difference. It is. And then Eric says
like Dylan Gabriel got picked.
He heard it too.
So whatever. Backup of the future. Who cares? Who gives a shit?
Dylan Gabriel.
If I were still a beat writer and they drafted Shador Sanders, I would have just thrown myself off the top of the NovaCare, which probably wouldn't have even killed me because it's not a very tall building. But oh my God, you just don't need that. Who needs that?
You don't need that.
WIP is probably mad as hell.
It is so weird because I know, Chucks, I know you especially follow everybody who analyzes the draft. I'm not even one of those guys. I couldn't tell you who anybody is much past the second round. But I read several times in the days leading up to the draft that Shador Sanders definitely wasn't going in the first round and that it was going to be, really, football people aren't as high on him as some of the talking heads are. This could be really an interesting situation. Where does he fit in if he's not a first rounder? And then it happens and people are like, oh my God.
It's a conspiracy theory.
I'm a casual and I saw this. I didn't see 5th round maybe, but I saw it coming, I don't understand. I really do. Who were the people who really thought he was going to go high in the first round?
Mel Kiper.
Mel Kiper.
Is like having those paddles. Those paddles they use at the hospital. They use every time a quarterback got picked.
He was so mad.
I'm not a Shador hater. Like I've never bought into him as a prospect. I don't think he was great at Colorado. He takes a lot of sacks. The ego, whatever. I don't care if my quarterback is egotistical. I like the braggadocious guy, but you gotta back it up. Like I heard like, oh, we didn't have a problem with Baker Mayfield and Johnny Manziel were doing it. So you mean two of the most prolific college quarterbacks of like the last 25 years. Baker Mayfield is arguably one of the greatest college QBs ever. Manziel won
the other guy was the greatest train wreck ever.
But I wouldn't use let's Johnny not diminish Shedeur Sanders. He's way better than a fifth-round quarterback prospect.
Yeah. So
Colorado won one game before he got there.
Here's the deal, Rob. Here's the deal. Did you read? There was one of the things written while this was happening.
Yes, I followed the Shedeur timeline very closely.
So there was a column a few days before the draft by Jarrett Bell from USA Today. Who talked to Deion, and Deion was real proud of. There had been a team, and there had been a report that the interview went really poorly. So Deion was real proud of having called the coach and, talked to him about this and gotten the coach to say, oh, no, the interview didn't go poorly. Oh, no. Who the hell wants that?
Yep.
That's not it. It's like the kid in high school, Les, that like they get to start on varsity because their dad buys like the new scoreboard.
That's
when I covered the Flyers, Carl Lindros was that guy, but he was just a guy. He was just an accountant in Canada. Deion is Deion. Anytime Deion has a problem with how his son is being used, it's going to be a headline on ESPN.
That's the thing.
You have to be an idiot to want that. I'm amazed.
You bought in too much to what your dad was saying. So you started acting a certain way because of what your dad was telling you, and it's a lot of it is Deion's fault, but a lot of it is Shedeur to not like checking anything. You're just like, my dad tells me I walk on water. What do you mean I could get wet? I don't think so.
Okay, so here's how I look at it. So it is a lot of it. So I think that the brashness and the cockiness and the ego, it is very similar, and there are elements of hypocrite being. There are elements where people are being a little hypocritical because, and we see it all the time, where if one person is cocky and has that, it's a problem. Whereas where another, it's an issue. So that is sometimes it is hypocritical.
At the quarterback position, it's often an issue. I mean, you don't want a quarterback who's an asshole.
That's like that, right? Now, talent will offset that, and they're willing to overlook it. Hence, Baker Mayfield, Johnny Manziel, absolutely 100%. I had a second-round grade on Deion Sanders. I mean, on Shedeur Sanders. So I
knew what you meant.
There we go.
Shedeur has a second-round grade on me. So I completely agree that I didn't see him as a first-round talent. I wasn't surprised he slipped out of the first round. That's all valid. That is all valid. I think the issues that stemmed from his draft process was not good. Like he did not. And where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm not in the room with it seriously to know exactly how the interviews went. There are fake reports online in Reddit that are going around. Do not believe them. But at the same time, if it's constantly being talked about, where there's smoke, there's fire. And so if he didn't do well and approach the draft process with the interviews and everything with the right mindset, then teams are going to not look at that right. And what I will say that is some of that is a good portion of this on him, 1,000%. He has to take responsibility because he's an adult, right? But I do think that if I had to weigh out blame, I think most of maybe like 60% is on Deion because he is a lot of the things that you guys said. Like if something goes wrong, Deion's going to be right there to insert his influence, right?
Yes.
And like no team wants that, and he enables his sons to act like this. And I never had a problem with Deion being brash and flashy like that. But there is when you are the father of an NFL prospect, you kind of have to be better at taking a step back and knowing the NFL is a business, right? So
a few things about Deion real quick. One is he was never a quarterback. I really think personality type for a quarterback is very different. Yeah. Deion was one of the greatest athlete we've ever seen in our lives. I mean, he really might have been. Him and Bo Jackson were the two.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But he was not a quarterback, and he could be brash and he could be say ridiculous things and be crazy because, you know, he was a part-time defensive back who also played the outfield. You know, I mean, the leader of your team has to be somebody that respects his teammates, who, you know, you can be a jerk and be a quarterback if you're incredibly talented, if you're like Aaron Rodgers talented, but if you're like a middle round guy, you better be the greatest person, the most accepting leader, the you know, the guy that, you know, picks up the towels and stuff and really, you know, puts his arm around everybody. Middle round guys don't get to be jerks. You
don't get that. You don't get as much leeway. Like I think.
Yeah, and now when the
issue with me with the whole thing was, I think it got. I didn't mind him sliding. I understood it until Dylan Gabriel got picked. That was when I was like, all right, come on, this is silly. One because, well, not one, but the main thing is because Dylan Gabriel isn't a third round prospect, guys. Like it's like the Cleveland Browns went out of their way to be like, hey, we are going to take a fifth round grade prospect and take him in the third round to prove a point. That then
they went and drafted Shedeur.
Anyways, like that's horrible process. So
they're so dumb.
Where I'm like, I don't mind the slide, but at the same time, there are points where it's just like it kind of got too far. You know what I mean? Like, I always try to be even keel with things like this, where it's just like I don't want things to get to the extreme. I don't like the extreme, and I think the Dylan Gabriel part was the extreme, where it's just like that's too much. That's a little bit too much. Taking Dylan Gabriel. And if you want a quarterback, and someone was trying to say like it's because they need a backup quarterback and they don't want like drama with their backup quarterback. No, you don't need a backup quarterback. You need a franchise quarterback. You need a starter. So it's not going to be a starter for you. Don't that's total BS.
Well, do you think Shedeur can be a franchise quarterback? I mean, does he have the possibility of being a franchise quarterback?
I think there is a path where he could be a solid middle tier, like, you know, like around the 15th, 16th ish type of quarterback in the league, right? That is his ceiling. I think that's
true. Somebody like New Orleans should have drafted him in like the fourth round.
Maybe they didn't like him as much as right. So like that's the thing. Like that's my evaluation. Like I know I heard there were teams that saw him as like a third or fourth round prospect. I don't agree. I know there are legit analysts that had him as a late first round prospect. Here's the thing with when it comes to the film grade. If we're just talking about film with Shedeur, it's a tough eval because one, his offensive line was horrible at Colorado.
Yeah,
and I get he had legit weapons, but at the same time, that offensive scheme was just nothing like a pro. Like they ran 6 to 8 of the same passing concepts all the time. That was all they ran.
He threw the ball a lot behind the line of scrimmage, didn't he?
Yeah, a lot. A lot of it was like screens and stuff like that. So like, how do you parse and dissect film like that to be able to project? So like, that's the thing with Shedeur is like you see there are reps where he is very accurate. He's very poised. He is a good pocket passer. But then you see things where you're just like, what am I supposed to do with this? Where he's facing immediate pressure and then just the play is dead because he has to retreat. Or like it's just half of his reps are screens. So like that's the tough part of the eval. Is just like you don't know what to make of it because there's not much to work with that translates to the NFL. That's why I think evals are all over the place with him, and that's why, you know, I didn't love the guy, but I didn't think he was horrible. That's my whole point. Yeah.
Last thing on Shedeur for me. So now when the Browns inevitably just stink out loud next season again, when they're 1-5 in mid-October, every question is going to be like, when is Shedeur going to play? When is Coach Prime coming to coach the team? I could do without that. That's why I thought I was in the chat. I was in the on the show on Friday when we were looking at it, and like Dallas was coming up. I'm like, Jerry's not gonna be able to help himself, and then he's gonna throw Schottenheimer out the door and retire Prime.
Yeah, I said ask PY. I had said, and no trolling. Like I'm being serious. Once he got into day 3, I'm like, the team that makes the most sense are the Cowboys, because they welcome this kind of circus. And I'm not trolling. I swear to God, they love the marketability.
And Dion, if anybody could handle Dion or wouldn't be bothered by, Dion would deal directly with Jerry. He wouldn't be talking to the coach,
100%,
or the quarterback's coach. He'd be yapping at Jerry, and Jerry could, talk back to him, because they have that relationship. That's the only person in the league, really. What'd you think? Somebody there, I think, had the Martian Lynch had the comparison to Marcus Vick, which is interesting.
That's not fair. But like, you can just tell. Somebody pulled up the video where it's Cam Ward and him working out, and they're like, Cam, what do you like to do for fun? He's like, I like football. He's like, what? You don't want to do a video or something? We'll sing a song. He's like, nah, man. All I care about is playing football. And he's just like, that's boring.
Yeah.
But that's Cam Ward. That's who he is. He just wants to play football.
Yeah. And even if you're not that kind of guy, you kind of want to be that kind of guy in the draft process.
Yeah.
Well, it's like if you're ever doing a job interview, you want to come across as a go-getter and as a ruthless competitor and all that good stuff, even if you think that's really stupid.
Yeah, 100% agree. Les, any parting thoughts about the draft before we let you go?
Well, I again skewed toward the third day. I wasn't expecting it to be quite that stark. I thought they might trade up and get more picks. I don't think they left themselves with any huge problems to be addressed. This tight end thing is what's looming, I guess. It's the tight end situation.
Yeah, it is looming, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. As we all know, Howie's never done right after the draft. There's still moves to be made. So yeah, it is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. And I think there was one more question for Martian asked, any chance Kayvon Thibodeau?
No. I kind of think the Giants are just not going to ever answer the phone again. How he calls.
They exercise his option too. So I mean that's
that would be hilarious, wouldn't it? I would love that. Good player,
Yeah, pretty good player, young player too. So, Les, it was so good to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's great to talk to everyone, especially you, Chucks, because I haven't in a while.
Yeah.
And watch PY growing the beard again. That's always fun.
There we go.
Start from square one, right?
Exactly.
We will see you again. We won't be. We're not going to have a show next week. We're taking a little break. So 2 weeks, I will see you again. And
good to know. Thank you very much.
That, I will be. I'll talk to you on Twitter.
All righty, Chucks. Thanks.
All right, Les. See ya. That is Les Bowen. Bone on the Birds. Great to have him back on with talking with me. I know he's been on every week, but I love being able to talk to him again, pick his brain. But we still got more draft talk. I know we're coming up on the hour, but hey guys,
we'll go longer.
We're going to go longer, a little longer tonight. So don't worry. We have some questions I want to circle back to, some prospects. So Habib, again, what do you guys think about Makuba? So what are your thoughts on Makuba? Guys, how do you like it?
That's my favorite. That's my favorite pick.
Is it okay? So
I mean, look, you really only have two options when you go, at least in my opinion, for your favorite pick. I'm not touching these. I'm not going to be one of these guys that, this guy on day 3 is the next Jordan Mailata. That's not me.
Stupid.
I hope it happens, but I am not as bullish on Sidney Brown as the rest of the fan base. I hope he's the greatest thing since Brian Dawkins in terms of Eagles safeties, but I haven't seen enough to commit to that yet. Mm-hmm. And Andrew Makuba, I mean, sometimes you watch guys like highlight reels and it's like, okay, like he got this pick 6, but the guy threw it right to him.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like he earns his takeaways. And that Texas defense was absolutely loaded last year. I mentioned last week that I was advocating for a minor trade up the board for Jihaad Barron. He was my favorite guy in the draft. Turns out they didn't even pick a corner. I don't think they picked the USC kid on day 3, right?
UCF kid, yeah. The
UCF, sorry.
Yeah,
the slot corner. So, like, I don't know. It's just like everything matches up with Makuba for me. Like, he's a ball hawk. He earned his takeaways. He's a high pedigree guy. So yeah, that's my favorite pick, and that's not taking anything away from Jihaad Campbell because I think that was a good pick too.
I hear you. No,
but Makuba was my favorite out of the 2 options that I consider options for this question.
I like that.
Nothing really made me scratch my head.
Yeah,
which is good. Which
Makuba,
is good.
Yeah, Makuba is he was one of my Eagles targets for round 3, being the 64th pick. That's the last pick of round 2, so I did not have an issue whatsoever. There were other guys I liked a little bit more than him were Watts and Winston. So I mentioned him in terms of when that pick came close. I mentioned those 2 as targets, but Makuba was right there. Like it's in the chat with PY. And PY saw it. Makuba was right there. So like it was. I like Makuba. He was one of the targets for the Eagles, like I just said. I like that he fell because of his size, but he doesn't play to that size. He plays much bigger, and I love that. He's physical. He is violent. Him and Sidney Brown have that together where they will throw their bodies and be violent missiles against offensive players and ball carriers. So I love that about him, and he's a ball hawk. That's the part that he has over Sidney is his coverage ability, and that he's a ball hawk. He takes the ball away. He has good ball skills. And to your Rob, you said you're not a big Sidney Brown guy, and PY knows this. I am. Sidney Brown was one of my guys a couple years ago, and I will say Makuba is better, and Makuba probably will be the starter over Sidney Brown. And so me saying that, being a Sidney Brown
all
guy,
you need to know.
This is all you need to know. He is a better prospect than Sidney Brown, absolutely, and he should get if he's ready. Like obviously he's a rookie, so maybe there's growing pains and stuff like that. And if they want to bring him along a little slower, that's fine. But I think that his upside is definitely higher than Sidney Brown. So I will put that on record. So PY, what did you think about Makuba? Anything else you wanted to add? Additional to what
obviously, like he's an ass kicker. Like he's going to take your head off. Not other than that, like he's great in coverage. Like you can trust him in the open field. Like you can trust him when you have to have him on a guy. Like it's not like he's just a hard hitter. Like I'm very interested to see how he does in this defense and what Fangio does with him. Like I like a good portion of our picks. I like him. Like I thought Campbell was really good. Like I didn't think they were going to go linebacker, but like where we were in the draft, anything was open at 32.
That's not what you had said to me before.
No. What I said was I don't expect them to pick a linebacker, but if they went with a guy like him or a wide receiver or anyone else, I'd be okay with it because it's 32. I also said on Twitter, if they envision him as a pass rusher, I think that is a more likely scenario, which is just they keep talking about it again and again and again.
But that's not the
you
trend.
Said,
like
PY,
it doesn't matter.
You said that there is zero chance for the Eagles to pick a linebacker in the first round.
And I leaned more
just say you said it. No.
I did say
We're stopping the show.
Were you wrong?
I was wrong.
Okay, that's all you say.
Unless he's a pure pass rusher.
That didn't take as long as I thought it was going to.
Unless he's a pure pass rusher, then I'm 100% correct.
No.
Well, I mean, Chucks and MPY, it's interesting. It seems like since that collapse on defense in, what was it? 23?
Yes.
Where they went 10-1 and then the defense couldn't stop anyone?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So since then, if you can't cover, you're not going to be an Eagles high pedigree, high round pick.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
basically what it seems to me, because Campbell, I know he's a linebacker, but he's got good coverage grades and he's a great athlete. And Makuba, that's all he can do is cover. Not all he can do, but he's a coverage safety.
Well, you put you in a
It's clear as
coma.
day.
Yeah.
A
No, I hear you.
coma. So if you
Yeah,
can't cover, you're not
in
getting
a
picked
coma,
high
yeah.
on defense.
Yes, he can put you in a coma.
Ryan Soap is asked, is Makuba just a ball hawk as far as beginning interceptions and reading quarterback like the Oda Something Samuel we had, or is great in coverage and shutting guys down too, like one-on-one coverage? Makuba is a safety, so he's not like that's not part of what he does. He's not really like if you're asking if he's the type of safety that could be a nickel corner, not really. He's more so the
Get a little
Fangio
bit of it,
type.
but not a lot.
He's more the Fangio type where he plays from the top down. So like he'll start off deep. So he's not that he's not the type of safety that covers in the nickel. So that's not his role. He comes
good
top
coverage
down.
grade, and he had 5 interceptions last year. Sign me up.
Yeah. So like if I were to pick, it would be chalk. In terms of my favorite Eagles pick, it would be Jihaad Campbell, but that's because that was my pick I predicted. He was the kind of the number one guy I wanted in the first round, and I was like, it was unlikely-ish, but I was like, come on, there's hope. And so when we got him, I was just over the moon. So that is my favorite pick from this class, if I'm being honest. But if you want me to pick a non-chalk one, I guess I don't know. Like I didn't know anything about Mac McWilliams. I'm gonna say right, like I didn't study him. So, but what I have seen is good. The Drew Kendall pick, it makes sense because I think he's the exact type of center that we take. He's the smaller, faster kind of center. He played only center in college, but they did say he is a guard too, so I guess they see him as he's going to have that flexibility. My guess is he's primarily going to be the backup center, but will have flexibility to guard as well. So that's good. I don't know. Like I think that if I were to pick another one, and I think this was asked before. Greg Miller says, "How about the tackle from Rutgers, Holland Pierce? 241 pounds. Could he replace Mekhi Becton?" So this is if I'm going to pick another pick, even though he's undrafted, I'd go to this. And I'm not saying that he's a definite to make the roster even, but he's intriguing. So as a Rutgers fan, I knew about him. Yes, he is an absolute ogre. Like he's again 6'8", 341 pounds, and he looks the part in terms of if you imagine that, yes, that is what you see. What you imagine is what you see. He is huge and round, and he has pretty good he can move a little bit. Now, I don't think he's going to be a tackle. I think he is going to move inside because being that big, I just don't see him fitting in our type of offensive line structure where we keep tackles on an island. He more so would probably be a guard. But the reason why this signing intrigues me is because I'm a Rutgers fan, and two, it's if you take a 6'8", 341 pound guy, and just if you're able to make him into a serviceable backup guard on a team like that was undrafted, that's a win. Like I'll take that. So that was the one I was looking at just because it's from my favorite team, and he's an ogre. So it's fun to watch him because he's just a massive offensive lineman. Massive. Yeah, actually I'm just 6'5", 288. That's moving. Oh wait, no, he's talking about Greg Ty Robinson. Yeah. So Ty Robinson, yes. He was he's a good linear type of pass rush. He doesn't side to side, not really. But yeah, linear going in a straight line. He's explosive as anything. So yeah. So I mean, that's draft picks that come out. Anyone else you guys wanted to cover that I didn't really touch on?
Not really. I'm in wait and see mode. Yeah, I'm in wait and see mode with the day 3 guys.
The 6th round pass rusher intrigues me. Antoine Powell-Ryland, like you're getting a guy who's had 30 sacks over the last 2 years. Obviously, it's in the FCS, so you don't really know what you're getting, but like you're getting someone who was a prolific pass rusher in college, and you just gotta wait and see if it's going to be able to translate. And if you're, what's the name of the Eagles' defensive line coach?
Clint Hurt.
Yeah, if you're Clint Hurt, like that's a guy you can get excited about, like to develop him and see what exactly he has to prove and what you can develop and what you can turn this guy into.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll see if any of these. So round 5 on Mac McWilliams. I think Mac McWilliams has a legit shot at being being a slot guy for us. I think there is a legit shot after what I've seen from him.
I think he's your new Avonte Maddox.
Yeah, like that kind of role. Maybe not as good, but like that role. Yeah. Shamel Mondin, I mean, he's an athletic linebacker, but he's a space player. So, maybe special teams. Drew Kendall, I already talked about. I do think he could be like a good, the backup there. So I do have that for him. Kyle McCord is Kyle McCord. If one of the 6th round picks, McCord, Hinton, Williams, Powell-Ryland, if one of them is able to turn into something like a contributor, that's a home run. So, yeah, I think the round 5, those 3 picks for round 5 were really good value, and I think there is some hope, optimism there that they'll contribute. So, Ty Robinson, I like to. I think that's pretty much it. Anything else, guys? You guys wanted to talk about in terms of outside of the Eagles, in terms of the draft? Maybe mention one pick that you loved, one pick you hate.
I thought the Bills killed it.
Which pick do you like?
All 4 of them. Their first 4 picks. I have them right here. Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky. T.J. Sanders, defensive tackle out of South Carolina. Landon Jackson, the 6'7" edge rusher out of Arkansas.
Yep.
And Deion Walker, another defensive tackle out of Kentucky. All 4 of those guys I at least pondered and would have been okay with the Eagles taking at some point.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Denver got our running back, Chucks, who's going to be a stud.
So I don't know if I did my running back rankings show last week. I like Henderson. I'm not as high on Henderson as most.
No, I like RJ. I'm talking about RJ Harvey. I don't know. I saw the one.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
The one scouting profile. I missed your running back show. I didn't see it. But
no, that's fine. That's fine.
But you did one of your profiles about our man RJ Harvey.
Yes.
Who's a stud.
He is a stud, Brings. I like him more than Henderson. He is. I made this comparison on Twitter when I did this profile. I said he is who everyone thinks Trevion Henderson is. Like, he is a rocket. Like, he is so good. I am so glad he went to Denver, because he is going to be Sean Payton's like Kamara over there in Denver. Oh my God, he's going to kill it. He's going to kill it.
And Denver got my favorite defensive guy. He was my target for the Eagles, Jihaad Barrett.
Oh, Jihaad Barrett, yeah, the corner.
Yeah. And I don't know. They're looking like they're building something. Even though I think Sean Payton's a tool, and I always think he's a tool, but they're building something.
They are building something, and they made the playoffs. So I mean, they are building well. PY, what do you think? Draft classes, draft picks that stood out, once some that didn't, whatever.
The Browns are stupid. They're so dumb. Oh my God. Gabriel in the 3rd, Shedeur Sanders in the 5th. They traded away a generational talent in Travis Hunter for draft picks, and maybe it's gonna work out, but God, they're so dumb.
So they got an absolute haul.
They did.
So when I saw that haul, I was like, I guess you can't pass it up. But when they took Mason Graham, I was like, I'm not.
They got a
I'm
haul
not
for the Julio Jones trade too. So
yeah, like I'm not as high on Mason Graham as most. I didn't think he was worth being a 5th pick overall. I don't like Mason Graham like that. And then obviously the whole thing with the quarterback. So yeah, I think they bundled that. Now they do have picks, like you said, they had picks for the future. So next year maybe they'll position themselves to take one of the better quarterbacks. But they took Shador like in the 5th round. They botched the way they went about it too, just botched. So I don't know. They're a mess. So that's one you hated. What's one that you like?
what's one that I liked?
Yeah.
Non-Eagles one.
Yes,
I thought the Commanders had a pretty decent draft.
they did. Unfortunately, the whole NFC East did.
Yeah. Giants had a
Outside of-
really good.
outside of
Honestly, you know
the-
what? I think
outside
the
of the-
Giants did really well as well.
Outside of the one first round pick, Jackson Dart, yes, they did do well. That's the
Yes.
one. I can't give them an A because of that.
Yep.
If I were to grade their draft, but I'd give them a definitely strong B plus because the rest of their picks were really good.
I almost texted my boss, who's a big Giants fan, a dartboard just to screw with them. But then I saw his notifications were silenced, and I just knew he was getting beat up. So I took some pity on him.
Yeah. Jackson Dart. Oh my god. I will give the rest of my. I'm gonna have on Film Don't Lie coming out Wednesday morning. I will have, my friend Shane Page from Eagles Pitbull Network will be our guest on with me. We will be talking about the draft, talking about our favorite draft classes. So tune into that. And Wednesday morning, it'll be out for your morning commutes and all of that. So tune in for that. But I'll give the rest of my draft takes there. I did think, I will say, because Ryan Swift says Cards had an all-around great draft. The Cardinals had one of my favorite draft classes last year. And again, this year. Like, it's annoying. It's annoying how good of drafts they've had the past 2 years. So yeah, that is one of my picks though. All right. Guys, great show. I like I've been saying, it's good to be back. I missed you guys. To the chat, I missed talking with you guys too. And being with you guys. We're here on Eagles Talk. Again, like I said, I'm back on Film Don't Lie as well. So those weekly episodes, Pete is still out. But I will try to have guests on with me, to kind of fill in for him while he's out, and then I will keep you updated on when he will be returning. But check us out. We will talk about non-Eagle stuff. Well, we will talk about Eagle stuff if it's relevant, but we will talk NFL as a whole. So the sister show of Eagle Talk from Don't Lie, Wednesday mornings for you, and then catch the rest of our shows here at the station as well. And thank you to our sponsors once again, Baggio's Bread in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. Make sure you mention ATD Radio for 10% off your in-store purchase for myself, for Brinks, and for PY, for Les, and the rest of us over here at ATD Radio. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you in 2 weeks again. We're off next week. Okay, no show next week. We're off next week. So we will see you in 2 weeks. Till then, go Birds. Peace out.
Go Birds.